Point laser spread. Clippers struggling, 29% shooting. George in the air, flutters one up and in.
When they needed it, and I'll never forget Ivica Zubac's first game was a 31-point comeback in Boston, and they went into the locker room at halftime down big numbers.
SGA did, but soft touch able to knock it in. No empty possessions here for the Clippers down the stretch is the key.
George, a tough shot over the outstretched fingertips.
Look at that. How you realize this young kid at 20 years of age can just completely take over a game.
They just turned 20 back in August.
Oh, George, it's just ridiculous. The way he's been shooting the ball from outside the arc.
And most of them were on those pick and roll plays.
Clippers with the ball first here in this third quarter with a 1-point lead. Let's hear from Allie LaForce. Allie, I know you had a chance to visit with Ty Lue coming out of the locker room as George gets a friendly bounce to get it started here in the second
Shoot for the Clippers. Bledsoe looking for Zoo. Now late for Paul George. Gonna have to bail out the Clippers with a mid-range jumper. He does what he does best. Knocks it in. He's 6 of 12 from the field
In this first quarter. One-on-one defense not settled in yet on the Clippers, and those two players in particular taking advantage of it.
George dashing down the lane, collides with defenders inside and lays it in. Paul George now with 11.
3 or 4 feet outside the three-point line. I'm not sure that's the one Pop wants him to take.
Batum gives it up. Paul George, good movement, pays off for the Clippers. And George puts them on top by 15-14.
He's so flat. It's got great rotation, but just a little flat.
Paul George, that on the geometric center.
Stealing my line. He was dead in the water in Charlotte.
He certainly was.
He was making all that money. He was making all that money, and I think there's a lot of angst. His PG knocked down a shot. Whatever shooting woes the Clippers have had before this game.
Clippers rebound down by a handful. George all alone. That provokes a three. Oh my! It falls.
Clipper defense, but we got a long way to go till we get to that game.
George glides in. And he's on automatic pilot here in the third quarter. He has 8. Clippers out in front. Lots of time to play here. Clippers looking for their 6th consecutive win after opening up the year 1-4. George rumbles down the lane off the glass. It is good. 20 for Paul George
to this season. Oh, sweeping hook. Another offensive board, but Zeller can't put it back. Clippers by 4. George pulls it. And George hits it.
3 misses. And the rebound collected by Paul George. George drives in on Brunson, swivels to the baseline, puts it up off the window. Oh, with a kiss and a smile. Paul George got some nerve for a youngster.
Well, yeah, but the game plan for the Clippers, see Paul George pull up for contested three, able to knock it in, is to get the ball out of.
Community partners Consejo, Hispano, an Astoria-based nonprofit serving the Hispanic and Latinx community of Oregon and Washington. It's been a very fun night.
Brooke, thank you, and a good read. Nice job handling that.
Burst there, nice find in the open court, but I love the way he makes a burst to the basket and sneaks the ball underneath the arms of the defense.
Averaging a couple points a game. Didn't play against the Lakers. Had 4 points, 3 assists in the Dallas game. Paul George, patient.
2. Wolves were 3 for 10 and now 8 of 17. Reggie Jackson was the 5th and final starter to score. This is George. Great look at a 3. And it's good for Paul George.
How about the bullet pass by Pat Bev going to his right, but like right now.
Pulls the trigger on a 3.
He should have shot the first one. Great hustle that time by Paul George.
Oh, George buries a 3. 7-point Clipper lead.
Paul George last week, 26 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists on average. And a 4-0 week, and George has got it cooking early. Back-to-back possessions.
Clippers had the home court advantage last year in the playoffs, but dropped the first 2 games as Paul George knocks down a little mid-range jumper. Great defense by Ivica Zubac, maintains verticality. And now Paul George and the Clippers are back the other way.
Clippers did a great job of building the wall. The defense there, PG does a great job of getting that shot up and
to take advantage of the mismatch. Sometimes he gets a little overzealous.
It's the first second chance bucket of the game for the Wolves. Paul George, his first made finish by 4.
That looks so comfortable there from Derek. Nice little spin move, finds that in-between shot. You can tell by his body language he's feeling comfortable early.
It opens up the opportunity for him now to go off the dribble because you have outstanding shooters, really don't have a lot of help.
George drives in and scores. Wild shot is retrieved by Bledsoe. Clippers out in front with 7:20 to play in the third. George left alone. That provokes a three. His second triple. Clippers lead.
The stars on both sidelines. Coach Billups giving CJ a running start at Hartenstein. Doesn't give the Clippers enough time to send that double team they want.
Paul George. Fall-away jumper, got it. Says, I got a little one. 6'3" Simons.
That from Pat Bev over the last 4 years, that little runner in the lane.
George gets around his defender, gets into the paint, runs into his good friend Karl Anthony Towns, and he returns the favor as he floats it in. Zubats. Blazers shooting 34% for the game. Clippers 27. Paul George got it going early with the three. They'll take it into the paint this time tentatively and uses that 6'8" frame to tower over Blazer defenders. Playoffs have been off to a terrific start here in this young season. Drives on Kenrich Williams, fades, fires, and on cue, knocks down the jumper.
But on cue is a play.
Okay, and at the other end of the floor, on Paul George, Covington, when they can get to it. This was in transition, they didn't get to it. Paul George against their guard.
So his leadership style was not good. He wasn't in shape. Well, all those things have changed. He's a terrific leader. And he's got Miami playing some of the best basketball in the Eastern Conference. George, a contested jumper. Oh my goodness. Knocks it down with two hands.
Every time he goes up and elevates the ball, to me, looks good, like it's coming out of his hands and it's going to go in.
Great look in the corner for George. Dueling banjos here in downtown Los Angeles.
If Karl throws it out, you've got to swing it to the backside. That's where the open player is.
Paul George.
Unreal.
I mean, he's just hitting everything right now.
It's been an incredible shooting display.
Effort for the Clippers, and I don't mean to be funny about that. They just seemingly have been able to do whatever they want on this side of the floor. George, that's 6 straight buckets for Paul George, 76 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists in the first quarter. George for 3. It's good. The second 3 for the Clippers.
Offense doing his job.
Clippers by 7, just under the 8-minute mark. Down on the floor is Powell. George steps back, takes a peek, and cashes it in.
Lefty up there, no. Cody the follow, blew it. Trying to get it back, can't. PG checks the rear view. Long strides, chops his steps into the lane. The 1-2, count it, and the foul.
5 fouls in that opening half, so they got a lot of fouls to play with here in the second half.
And Josh Okogie got his money's worth on a couple against Paul George, but PG comes in and
Bledsoe. Here's Paul George. He's got all the moves, and he ties it at 12.
Out on top it comes here to Jackson. He's covered by Simons. Reggie corkscrews. Wheels it to George. Flicks a 3 and scores. And look out.
State and has not hit 2 threes in a game since then. He's 2 for 2 in this one.
Paul George.
Paul George is PG.
Play it straight. Play it straight. We got something else working. All right, let's get a stop right here. Good job. Come on.
To go against the Lakers. And he gets the first bucket of the second half for his 22nd point here.
Yeah, well, the way he has it going on right now, he's poised to get his career high.
At the outstanding defense, he Paul George with an excellent pump fake and then baseline drive. But Karl Anthony Towns has only averaged 19 points against
The ball stripped and has to float it back out to George. Plenty of time on the clock for the Clippers. George rises from 20 and rips the 4. It's his 3rd bucket here today.
You see the kick back out again, and the screen set by Zoo, and this is what gives Paul George the look before Porzingis can get
Towns
there.
out of the timeout, can't get that to go. Then if Kevin Garnett's the big ticket, that Anthony Edwards should be the main event.
Well, we said that on the
back line by Paul George. Got his hand up there just enough to influence the shot. That's GA.
George for 3. 79-77. Paul George kicks it back outside to George. Plenty of time to shoot for the Clippers. Pulls up on the elbow. Splash for Paul George.
Well, I mean, what a luxury.
He's down by Bledsoe. 85-63. Clippers. Under 4 minutes to play in the quarter. George all alone for 3. Holds to finish. It helps. He knocks it in for points 18-19. For Dallas, Clippers trail by 3. George tries to play a two-man game with Zoo, calls his own number. Oh, reorganizes in mid-flight and lays it in. George for the lead.
You get your best player the ball in a situation and place on the court that he's comfortable with. Paul George.
Paul George crossing on Covington. Nurk steps up. They swing it into the corner to Bledsoe. Nurk does a nice job not to overcommit. Zubac swings it on the wing, and there's Paul George trying to get unhinged tonight. Clippers take possession. Paul George, who's had the hot hand in the second, defended by Lillard. Drives it to the end line, jump stops, laid it up and in.
I'm surprised they're not going back to Reggie Jackson here.
Paul George, he gets loose. And it's an 8-0 run.
Hartenstein was so impressive in training camp. I'll be honest, been more impressive here now that the games count for real. 13-point lead for Miami. George trying to get the Clippers back into it. It's a good way to start his second three.
Let's go back to that previous play. PG right here able to get the switch. And if you're not up on that screen early, Paul George is going to...
Great defense by the Clippers. The Blazers never got the ball reversed to the other side of the floor. They played 2-on-2 on one side.
Counted. Continuation for George. And one.
Paul George here, just on the attack against drop defense. The first
DJ with 9, using some veteran guile that time. Put the Blazers on top by 10. George, the crossover, step back, a rattler up and in.
Oh, trust me, that, especially in the morning.
My experience is I'm not a professional athlete. It feels like you're stepping on a hot nail every time.
Zubac back to Paul George. George very effective in his first run tonight. Looking for double figures and has got it here with 11.
Just got to talk that one out.
Fearless. Here's Paul George now back in the game at the 7:32 mark. He goes to work in the paint, fakes a pass, spins, corkscrews, and hits a fallaway jumper.
Kept the set the Blazers ran.
Looking for a seat under the drip line. Veteran move. Paul George doubled low post. Out it comes to Jackson. Blazers react. Now they scramble over on Paul George. He cashes in another three.
Conference foes matching up. Two teams that have high expectations this season. George off to a great start tonight. Little shake and bake. High arching shot. Scores over Covington.
And
See by Oculus from Facebook. Paul George.
Great footwork on the spin. And then down almost behind the backboard. Shoots this.
Which he put that up. 4 of 6 from 3. Blazers on a 12-2 run. Paul George trying to cut into it with a bucket. He's fouled.
What? Did I miss something?
Ryan and Jim at the movies will continue. George curls off the screen, comes up firing. Oh, it's 9. Jumper offline. George with the rebound. Here come the Clippers looking to push to the house and punches it in with the right hand. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, he threw it down. Split the two defenders. Throw it down, PG.
Thought they could leave open. Not this year.
12-point Blazer lead. Paul George trying to get it off. Does from 3. Yes. And a whistle.
George with his 8th rebound to go along with 27 points. Clippers are down by 6. George, can he do it again? Yes, sir!
When you have a player that's special like Paul George, the ability to create space and get a shot and shoot off the dribble is really difficult to kind of double team in the middle of the court.
He's been disruptive.
All orange. Paul George on the wing drills another 3.
72, Minnesota 45. George. Tailgated by Vanderbilt, easily gets around and reverse layup from right to left. He's good for Paul George.
Unbelievable in this sense that it was so easy. I mean, it was a contest at the end by Edwards, and then Tightrope in the baseline here. A little hesitation, got bumped.
Kennard back to George. Clippers by 7. George knocks it down. He got hit right in front of James Capers, but no whistle.
Open up, and then here, watch at the end. Watch the reach by the hero right there. I don't care if it's a little tap or not, it's still a foul.
Clippers out in front. Reed coming out of the break. Denied by Hartenstein. Here's George in front of the pack to the cup. Hit from behind and lays it in. No whistle. He lands it safely, and Paul George and the Clippers.
After a big win, well, right now, Clip Nation's taking advantage of a team that's feeling good about
foul for the Thunder here in the fourth quarter. 9:12 to play. Paul George disappears, reappears at the iron and lays it in. 19 for George.
Watch him right here as he gets down, steps right there. Just enough to
on the glass with a 48-40.
DeJounte Murray already cleaning up in the stat department.
But the Clippers got it going offensively.
Paul George. Al's been given the heavy burden of guarding George. He scored some points as well. Little step back three, and George stays hot.
And here it is. He gets the switch, so he gets McCollum. Not as good a defender as
thus far.
Set the hook that time, baby. Nice job by Paul George out of the timeout. Again, backdoor cut by Paul George.
Ran out of gas at the rim. It looked like a defender was up under, and he wanted to call, won't get it. Step back, Paul George. Now he's getting unhinged again.
14 Miami.
Yeah, but on that handoff sequence, you got to force Bam back out. You can't give him a side to choose from. When he does that, it's going to be impossible to stop.
George reclines on the defender, and Hero spins to the baseline and knocks it down.
Again, go to work. PG right here identifies the defenses in the middle, turns to the baseline. So this is
9 seconds difference. Game clock, shot clock. Paul George with it. 8 on the shot. And an and one.
Oh, he used his off arm there. I didn't like that call at all.
1:15 to play in the game. Clippers by 3. George.
This is the isolation, the complete side of the floor.
Oh my, what a big time shot!
Let's watch Paul George. You'll see 4 white jerseys on the left side, PG by himself, and his length and size after one dribble knocks it down. Let's look at this one to go.
Noel's in the game too, by the way, for Minnesota. Easy play by Paul George, just sifting through Minnesota's defense.
11 of 14.
Both Vincent guarded 3. Man with the rebound. Miami just 4 of 19 from the three-point line. Clippers creeping back into it. George from the line to the lane to the rim. Takes it to the house and makes a little noise.
doing what he does best, identifies where the open spot is. And again, what about the screen right there? If Zubac was in the NFL, they'll call him for a legal pick.
Starting PG here, at least early on.
And Paul George off the glass and in. 15 points for him in the opening quarter. Paul George, though, in some foul trouble.
Terrence Mann and Malik Beasley at FSU. I'm a big Leonard Hamilton fan, too. He just is a great coach.
Well, how does Paul George get that to go? The Wolves get a hand on it and it goes anyway.
Both in pick and roll game, in transition, turning the corner, getting to the rim.
Playing long here, I mean
that's even blocked.
The NBA. George, chased by a pair of would-be defenders, floats it up and misses everything, but Hartenstein is there. George relocates to the corner for 3. Just as you draw it up.
To be able to shoot it over the top, get the offensive rebound, kick it out. Paul George, you're out of the play, you're in the play. See, that's that NFL rule when you're out of bounds. You gotta...
Clippers going after their 5th consecutive win after a slow start to the year. Damian Lillard on George. He goes to work. He spins twice. He is fouled and one. Paul George.
The Clippers down, use some clock and get the shot. Norman Powell a little late coming on the double team as he isolated on Lillard. And it's an and one.
Roll man, therefore that empty side of the floor produced a wide open shot.
George with 7 to shoot for the Clippers. Drives in on Bullock. He goes to the house. Oh, my! Hello, nasty!
I think you love this move. I think you like the end of it, by the way. PG throwing it down.
It's nice to see.
And a big hand for Paul George on his way out.